Welcome everyone to episode 9 of Book Writing Tips, quick tips for new and seasoned authors, and I am your host, Alba Arango. In today's episode, I want to talk about what has become probably one of the most important marketing tools for authors of all stages, even if you haven't even published a book yet, and that is a newsletter and an email list. And I know you're thinking, but I've seriously only written like 5 chapters in my book. Why on earth do I need a newsletter? Well, hopefully by the end of this episode, you will not only understand why you should be starting a newsletter, but how you can go about doing it. So let's get to it. Let's talk newsletters, email lists. So today's episode will be split up into 2 parts as always. In the first part, I'll talk about why I think it's important for all authors, especially young and emerging authors, to consider having a newsletter to develop an email list. And I'm going to talk about who to follow, like some suggestions of different authors to follow. And in part 2, I want to get into how you can start your own newsletter, like the steps you should probably take in order to get that done. So let's do it. Let's talk about why I think everyone should have a newsletter. So a few months ago, I think it was like April, I went to this writers conference here in Vegas and I listened to a panel where there was an agent as well as an acquisitions editor from one of the big 5. And someone in the crowd asked, how important is having social media to you to consider like acquiring this author? And the agent said, absolutely none. Like, it doesn't matter. I don't have social media. So if you don't have social media, it doesn't bother me at all. And the acquisitions editor said the same thing. Like, well, social media, yeah, I mean, it can be helpful. But what I'm really looking at is, do you have a website and do you have an email list? And that really surprised me because I've been attending writers' conferences. I think my first one was in 2008, which means it's been almost like 20 years that I've been attending writers' conferences. And I just realized how old that makes me sound. Dang. Anyways, back in 2008, I mean, the thing I got out of the 2008 is that you need a Facebook page. Oh my gosh, you need a Facebook page. If you're starting off, you need to start a Facebook page. So that's exactly what I did. I went home and I started a Facebook page. And then the years go by and it became, Twitter and then Instagram. And it became, if you don't have a platform, if you're not on all these social medias, then, no one's going to take you seriously as an author. And things have evolved. When TikTok came on the scene, suddenly it was like, you need to have a TikTok. And all of these are overwhelming for young authors. But the one thing that has kind of stayed the same is since 2008, they have said you need a website and you need to develop an email list. And at this last conference, I think I never really quite saw how incredibly important having a website, even if it's just a stagnant website with just basic information on it, but developing that email list is like gold. So that is why I am doing an entire podcast on newsletters. And by the way, I will have a separate podcast later on developing a website because I do think that is absolutely mandatory. Like any author you Google is going to have a website. And that means if you're thinking of being an author who's going to be selling books in the future, you should start thinking about having one too. But there's not enough time to talk about both of them today. So I'm just focusing on newsletters. Who should you follow? And of course, there's so many authors out there for you to follow. I mean, there's no way I could put all the authors you should probably follow in like one podcast. But I'm going to give you just some ideas of authors I think you may want to look into. And the number one, hands down, is going to be Jane Friedman. And I have mentioned her in previous episodes as well. She really is, in my opinion, one of the most amazing resources and tools for writers of all stages. If you're a new author and you don't know Jane Friedman, just go to janefriedman.com. And yes, I am going to put a link to this in the comments. And check out her resources. She is just amazing. And she has two separate newsletters, one that's free and one that's paid. And I personally would advise you to do both. It's not expensive. I think it's like $25 a year or something like that. I mean, it's really very inexpensive, but the amount of information she gives you in this is just phenomenal. So I would definitely advise, if you get nothing else out of this podcast, that you go to Jane Friedman's website and just check out her resources. I also would suggest, and this is kind of off topic, but since we're talking about Jane Friedman anyways, that you may want to invest in her book. I remember buying it years and years and years ago. It's called The Business of Being a Writer, and it literally helped me with so many things as a new and emerging writer. And she just came up with the second edition, which of course I bought, even though I have the first edition, because the second edition is updated information, stuff that's like relevant to 2025. So I'll also put the link to her book in the comments too. She's amazing. So I would definitely, if nothing else, follow her. But there's a lot of writers out there for you to look at. And I want you to look at a lot of different authors and subscribe to their newsletters, because every author is different in the things that they put in their newsletter. So for example, Erin Bowman, she's pretty popular. She writes YA. She's got some children's books. She has a lot of writing advice in her newsletter. And that's in addition to her book stuff. So that's pretty cool. If you're like a new writer and you want to get some writing advice, I would follow writers that have been successful and that publish writing advice in their newsletters. That's a cool reason to follow her. But there's all kinds of writers like Terry Mixon. He does like updates to what he's got going on, and he always has cat pictures. And both of those to me are both pretty cool. I have a newsletter too, so I would love it if you join my newsletter. Trust me, there will be a link in the comments as well. If you want to know what I do for my newsletter, I always have book news. So like what's going on with my writing. I have upcoming book signings. I also do like what happened to me in the past month, not personal stuff, obviously, but like, hey, if I took a trip, I'm going to have a couple pictures. I always have pictures of my dog Pumpkin, sunsets in Vegas. And of course, I do this because I want my readers to get to know who I am as a person. And so that's important to me personally. That's not important to all authors. So my biggest thing I can tell you is just subscribe to many different authors. You can always unsubscribe, but see what their newsletters are like to see what you like and what you don't like in a newsletter. So when you go to write your newsletter, which I'm going to talk about in part 2, you already have some idea of the kinds of things you want to include in your newsletter. All right. Before we get to part 2, though, it is that time where we talk about the crazy law and writing prompt of the day. And if you're new, again, I always do a crazy law, and this is something that once upon a time in history, it was a real law, and it is a great excuse to use it as a writing prompt. Today's law is, in North Carolina, a state law makes it illegal to sing out of tune. Okay, your challenge is to write a story of why you think that became a law, which on a completely separate note, just so you know, I would probably be in jail most of my life if I lived by that law. Before I get into part 2 of how to start your own newsletter, I want to give you one more reason why I think it's so important for everyone to have a newsletter and an email list. If you have social media and you're like, but I already have, 1,000 followers on Instagram, that is fantastic. You have 1,000 followers, but you should kind of already know this. But in case you don't, the way the algorithm works with Instagram and all the other social medias is when you post something on Instagram, it is not shown to all of your followers. So if you have 1,000 followers, it probably shows it to 10%. That means out of 1,000 followers, maybe 100 of them are going to be shown your post. And if they don't engage with that post, they're not going to show it to any more of your followers. That means the other 900 followers are not going to even see that post. So if you do a post about, hey, I have a new book coming out, literally maybe 100 of your 1,000 followers are going to see it. Now, if they engage with it, if they're like, great job, they love it, they like it, then maybe your algorithm will show it to more of your followers. But if they don't and your engagement is low, those other followers aren't going to see your post. Whereas if you have an email list, everyone's going to see it. Everyone who opens their email is going to see your subject line, new book. And chances are pretty high, if they're already following your newsletter, they're going to click it open and see it. Which means if you have 1,000 email subscribers, the chance of your having 1,000 people to see it is high. So that's why it's so important to have an email list and a newsletter. So how do you start a newsletter? First thing you are going to need is to actually subscribe to a service. Now, this service is the one that you're going to write your email in, and they're the ones who are going to distribute it to your subscribers. Now, there are a lot of different services that are free. Like literally, you don't have to pay anything to use their email service. They're going to include their little thing at the bottom so that everyone knows what service you use. And you know what? You're paying $0, so that's pretty cool. Usually, the more subscribers you have, you will have to shift to the paid service. But at that point, if you have that many subscribers, then fantastic. You're probably already making some money off of your books, so you can pay for your services out of your, profits. But for now, if you're just starting off, free is perfect. So I will tell you the one I use, and it is actually not the one I'm going to recommend. And that is MailChimp. And it's been good to me. Okay. When I started with MailChimp, it was 2013. And in 2013, they were like the premier free service. Like everyone used MailChimp. But since then, it's been 12 years now? Many upstarts have gone way beyond what MailChimp offers for their free service. So I actually would probably not recommend MailChimp. It's not a bad service. Everyone knows it. So that is definitely a pro. I use it. It's still a good service for me. It would be hard for me to change services now. I would literally have to have all of my subscribers resubscribe, and you're going to lose subscribers when that happens. So it will have to take a lot for me to leave MailChimp. But if you've never had one before, then you are starting with a blank slate. So look into MailChimp too if you want, but I would also recommend these. So there is one called MailerLite, and it's MailerLite. They are one of probably the most popular that I have seen new authors get into, and the other is GetResponse. And those two, I'll put links to these in the comments so that you can go there through my comments. Those are the two that I have seen a lot of authors use, but there are others. There is Kit, K-I-T. There's also two others that are kind of competitive against each other. One is Beehive, and that is B-E-E-H-I-I-V as in Victor. And the other is Substack. And Substack may be the most popular one that I've seen. A lot of new authors go to Substack. I know they have a free service, but they also have a way you can monetize, which is pretty cool. So and a lot of people use it as a blog too, and you can monetize it, but I know you have to pay for that subscription to monetize it. But if you're getting a lot of followers and subscribers, that might be the way to go. So if I was starting fresh today on starting a new newsletter, I'd probably look at Substack, MailerLite, and GetResponse first, but check them all out. Because it's kind of like, you're committing to this. Because again, the same reason I'm not leaving MailChimp, it's hard to change from one service to another without losing subscribers. And you want to keep those subscribers. So that's my advice to you on starting it. Now, once you have a service, your next step is to get the hardest part, to get subscribers. So how do I get subscribers to this new newsletter? So here are a few places you get them. The number one is your website. And if you don't have a website yet, yes, I am going to have another one on how to start a website, but you definitely want to get into a website. But if you already have a website, you've already got the perfect platform to funnel people into your newsletter. The second one is your social media. If you've already got followers on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or Blue Sky or Threads or whatever you are on, you can funnel them to your newsletter, and that's a great way to get subscribers. And of course, your family and friends are always going to want to join, and they're probably the best ones to have first because you can bounce ideas off of them. You can send emails and say, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And you can ask them, and they'll give you advice on that. So Hopefully, this has given you some ideas of why newsletters are important and how you can start them off. Again, I'm going to end with my best advice, which is follow a bunch of different author newsletters and even artist newsletters just to kind of see what you like and what you don't like. So when you start your newsletter, you have an idea of how you want to set your newsletter up. If you enjoyed this, again, I'm going to say this at the end of everyone. Please, please, please like it, subscribe, comment if you want. I do a new episode every Wednesday. Please join me, and I will see you all next week.